Well, yesterday we began talking about Paul's exhortation to the younger women, and particularly he's speaking to young women who are married and are just starting their family. And it's not that Paul is picking on them, and that's not why we're spending 2 days talking about this, but it's because there is such a long list of things that he says that older women need to be sure to help younger women to understand and to learn and to apply, to really kind of be willing to engage in kind of relational partnership. And yesterday I left off where he said that, they're to love their husbands and their children, they're to be self-controlled and pure, not giving in to especially sensual impulses or any kind of addictive behaviors that would take their strength, their attention, and their clarity away from the family, which is their primary responsibility, that they're to be busy at home. And in other words, that what goes on in your home is something that you're focusing on. You're not focusing on the internet. You're not focusing on some television show. You're not even simply focusing on your social relationships, but you're making sure that your home is an orderly place, a place that that your children and your husband and everyone who comes into it feels like they're coming into a place that's not in a state of chaos and confusion, but of order. Because, in the same way that I often say that if I look at somebody's desk and it's a pile of clutter, I realize that their mind is probably just as cluttered. They may be able to focus on what's right in front of them, like their job or their career or their ministry, but in terms of the other areas of their life, they're going to be probably neglectful. And I think that that's kind of what we find in the home life. If our homes are really cluttered and disorganized, it's really an indication that you're probably putting too much attention to the wrong things. In fact, there are certain necessary things in life that you have to focus on, and if you don't, you're going to find that your life is going to become disorganized and disassembled. And it's interesting because I find a lot of ladies that I've known over the years who have, and when they're younger, have complained about how to get organized. A lot of them would talk to my wife because she is uber organized, and I can just simply tell you she taught me how to get organized, and I will be forever grateful for it because it has made my life simpler rather than less complicated. But he says, this idea of seeing the home as a point of focus and a point of energy is something that is counter to the culture that we live in. And too late, many women are discovering that they've, in the pursuit of career or finding their identity outside of a marriage and a home and a family, they're really kind of feeling very alone and isolated and still struggling to find something to give purpose and meaning to their life. I know it's not politically correct to say it, but the vast majority of women in this world are meant to be in families. They're meant to be married, to have children. And I know that there's some people who find themselves going through life single and without kids because of something beyond their care. And that's a special calling. Paul said that some are eunuchs for the kingdom. In other words, they're not married. That's a gift from God and a capacity and ability that they have to do that, to be thankful and to be contented with that. But most people are called by God to multiply and be fruitful, to have a family, to have children, and to lose that opportunity or to neglect it because you've been sold a bill of goods by the culture is one of the most tragic things that I think is happening in our world today. And it serves the interests of the people who are in power and who want to move cultures away from God's way and after the ways of Satan. I don't know that they know that, but they're following the satanic plan, which is always one of destruction, that the enemy wants to destroy your life. And so he tells the younger women, you need to be busy at home. But he goes on to say, and there's two more that he lists, that they need to be kind. Kindness is an interesting concept because most of us never recognize when we're being unkind. But usually if there's pain in our life, it's very, very hard to be kind. Pain is one of those things that brings us back to reality. It makes us focus on the most essential thing. I've often said that, I've used the illustration when I used to try my hand at doing carpentry, and there's a few times where I missed the nail and I hit my thumbnail. And I tell my wife, it's the most painful thing in the world. It's more painful than childbirth. Of course, she doesn't believe that, but it's so painful that what happens is all your attention, your focus goes to to this little appendage on the end of your hand that you may not pay any of attention to it for months and even years, but suddenly that becomes the whole world to you, and you're sitting there throbbing with pain. Well, I say that because we go through things in our life that create a great deal of pain, and I'm not saying that you should neglect the pain or ignore it. What you need when you have pain in your life is to prayerfully seek God and say, God, why do I feel this pain in my heart? Because there are betrayals, there's disappointments, there's people don't follow through and keep their word and do what they say. They may intentionally or unintentionally do things that are very hurtful or harmful. I've found many times where I used to I'm so hung up on witticisms that I would just say things that weren't thoughtful and weren't kind. I remember one guy telling me after I made a joke about something he shared with me, he said, that's really hurtful. And I'm glad he said that to me, because it didn't seem hurtful to me when I said it. But when he pointed it out, I thought, oh yeah, if I look at it from your perspective, that's a pretty hurtful thing to say. And so it's important that we understand that kindness is not something that is necessarily intentionally doing good thing. It's really kind of seeing people in a gentler way, to recognizing that other people have a degree of fragility. And ladies, let me tell you, we men are incredibly fragile. My wife doesn't have to be harsh in her criticism to make me feel bad. She just needs to point out something that she thinks is a failing on my part, or I didn't measure up to what I probably should have, and I feel pretty bad about it. Now, the problem is that sometimes I feel sorry for myself. I lick my wounds. I become a baby in my response. And guys, we can't do that. We gotta grow up. We gotta suck it up and be tough. But at the same time, we go out in the world and we fight battles every day, and many of those battles are in our own heads. The world around us tells we're inadequate. The culture tells us that we have masculine toxicity. I love these made-up terms, made-up concepts. And so you can feel really embattled. I've really noticed in watching commercials, and I kind of study TV commercials because I think they really say a lot, because the people who make those commercials have figured out to tap into our inner thoughts and to direct us to where they want us to go. And it's amazing to me how men, especially masculine men, have been increasingly depreciated by the culture. In fact, I was looking at one commercial for a mattress of all things, and it's like a complete reversal of roles. The woman is the one who is the leader, the wise one, the insightful one, and the guy is all caught up in his emotions and his feelings, and he can't deal with the stress of a political discussion. And I'm just sitting going, I don't know any guys like this. But yet they're saying to a whole generation of young men, this is who you're supposed to be, and saying to a whole generation of women, you need to stick it to him whenever you feel like it. And so that what happens is there's a level of unkindness that becomes part of the home life, and that becomes a place that is no longer safe to be vulnerable. And that's really, I think, what's important about a family and a home. A home is a place where you can be vulnerable to the other people and not feel like they're going to want to hurt you, that they're the people who are going to be on your team, who are working for your best good. And so if you're in a relational situation with family members where you have a family member who specializes in demeaning and criticizing and faulting and accusing, that's very sick and wrong, and that person needs to get help. But at the same time, if we recognize that in ourselves, we need to do the corrective. We need to sit down and very prayerfully begin to say, God, take away this anger and this that's inside of me that wants to basically slander and put down other people. And that's where you get into the fifth thing that Paul lists in this list of things that he said younger women need to learn, and that's to be subject to their husbands. In other words, to honor his role as the head of your home. Here again, I know I'm hitting on a topic that is not popular, but it's one that's essential and critical. In fact, it's probably so significant. I think what I'm going to do is kind of pause at this point and tackle this tomorrow, because I think if there's any issue that is misunderstood and misrepresented by the culture and really by many people, is this idea of what it means for a woman to be in subjection to her husband. So I think that's fair. We'll pick it up tomorrow. Blessings.